Xtalks connects professionals in the life science, medical device, and food industries with useful content like webinars, job openings, articles, and virtual meetings to help you succeed in your career. This food industry-focused podcast brings together some of our editorial staff to share insights into the latest B2B industry news to help keep you up to date.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Xtalks Food Podcast. I'm Sydney Perlmutter, Senior Food Industry Journalist and Webinar Moderator at Xtalks.com, and this week I'm joined by special guest Dirk Herdes. Dirk is the General Manager and Senior Vice President of Sales at Crisp, which is a platform that connects CPGs to real-time POS and inventory data from 40-plus retailers and distributors. So, Dirk, thank you so much for joining us today.
Fantastic to be here. Thanks for having me, Sydney.
So can you provide an overview of Crisp's platform and how it integrates with retailers and distributors to provide actionable insights?
Yeah, so I think when we looked at the opportunity, you kind of mentioned it too, right? Integrating data across many retailers. Crisp platform, we really partner with our CPG and supplier partners to address that challenge, right? So they look at their overall data strategy and they have all these different assets across the ecosystem they have to manage. And really what our platform allows them to do is seamlessly ingest that data across their retail partners, harmonize that, manage that, and then integrate that within their systems so that both their teams in the field can leverage that to make smarter decisions with their retail partners, but as well, they can leverage the whole of their organization, right? And so they can integrate that retail POS inventory into their overall data strategy, ultimately with a goal to make better decisions, drive better outcomes with their retail partners, and ultimately delight their customers at the shelf, at the website, at the app, or wherever they may be experiencing their brands.
So how are AI and analytics specifically transforming commercial food supply chains? And can you share some real-world examples?
Yeah, absolutely. I think anybody that's been in the supply chain industry, the first thing they'll all agree, right? Data has been an essential ingredient and asset in that journey. For the longest time, in a lot of ways, maybe one of the earlier adopters of utilizing data. But I think a few things that really started to pressure that, and you talked about AI and you talked about analytics. I think the first one that I would highlight is, I think COVID to some degree was a flashpoint for everyone in the sense of it said, hey, what happens when things change? How am I going to manage that? What happens when it puts pressure, when I have to get more localized with my strategy, right? That puts a lot of pressure on just how granular the data is, how accurate it is, how I can use it. And then I think you now combine that with this real resurgence or push for AI and generative AI, and everyone's trying to take advantage of that. And you quickly realize, like, if I don't have my data strategy in order, my technology strategy in order, I don't have my teams collaborating, it gets really difficult to leverage those. So I think the upside is really big. I think there's a history and a legacy in this industry of leveraging data. But I think when we think about what AI can do and how analytics can help teams, I think it gets really exciting. An example is we've actually partnered with UNFI, where we've enabled real-time monitoring of dashboards and live tracking of the entire food supply chain. And what we're able to do is then free that up to their suppliers so they can actually see, where do I have spoilage risk, right? And they've seen opportunities of reducing that spoilage by 1% to 2% because now I can start to take decisions. I can put it into a different store, I can shift my demand, I can run a promotion. And so I can really start to take action on the data, which gets exciting.
So Crisp's mission includes reducing waste across the supply chain. So how does your platform help achieve this? And what kind of impact have you seen so far?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is probably two major things with our customers that we try to free up. I think the first is having data I can action on and data I can trust. And so the closer I get to the actual point of decision, i.e. the real-time store, day, level granularity, the more actionable that data is going to be. And so our first step is we're going to free that data up and make sure that it's trustworthy and you can action upon it, right? You can take decisions with confidence. I think the second piece is allowing for more seamless collaboration, right? So because you can connect that data into your data lake, into your environment, now your marketing teams, your supply chain teams, your sales teams can all start to understand the cross impacts of their decisions and start to plan more effectively. A great example would be one of our organizations. It actually started as a media optimization and really trying to understand, hey, where should I run this, right? Where do I have the right supply? Where is demand? And what we're able to identify through that analysis and through that level of granularity is actually they had a pretty significant out of stock problem in a lot of their stores. And so, hey, we got to go get that right to make sure that our investments in media are maximizing. And so I think it was a really fun, exciting opportunity of just, what you can do when you have that level of data cross-functionally within your organization.
How important is real-time data in the modern supply chain, and how does CRISP ensure the accuracy and timeliness of the data that it provides?
Yeah, I think, anytime you get into real time, it raises some interesting questions. I sometimes refer to it as near real time, but obviously you can all the way get down to hourly information. I think it's only as good as both the trust I have in the data and my ability to extract insights from that, right? Any software that's not used is just overhead, right? It's just information. And so I think we focus a lot on how do we keep it simple, right? How do we feed them the data that they need, structure it, harmonize it in a way that they can trust it? And then I think, how do we then enable them to take actions upon that, right? And that really comes down to, I can see the information, it gives me a recommendation, I can now go take an action, whether that's, with one of my merchandising services partners in a store, or it's changing my orders for next week so that I can better understand, demand and kind of maybe reduce some of the waste that I have in that process. You have incredibly bright people in this industry, right? And when you equip them with the data, they can make the right decisions and they can impact in a meaningful way across a large scale of retail and consumer goods.
And now, how are brands and retailers themselves using data sharing and analytics to manage their inventory and keep products on store shelves?
Yeah, it's got an interesting and long legacy, I think, of some of the leading retailers early on understanding that the stronger their collaboration is with their supplier partners, right, the better off both of them do, because ultimately the customer wins and therefore the retailer and the supplier wins. I think what you're seeing now is just a continuation of that journey. I think more modern ways to share the data. That's just what happens with technology. It gets more exciting. I can run AI on my side, and then I can share with you the results of that, right, without having to commingle or maybe expose personal data that I don't want to share. I also think with just the shift into omni-channel, there's a lot more variables for customers and how they want to shop and how they want to receive it. And so new data starting to be shared in new ways with their suppliers. And that's pushing on some muscles, right? And it's forcing supplier teams to work more effectively across the organization. I think the same thing with retailers, but I think the underlying trend will be the same. The retailers and suppliers that really effectively collaborate through data will continue to win in the marketplace.
Now, in terms of some challenges, what do you notice are some common challenges that CPGs face when trying to streamline their supply chains, and how does CRISP help address these challenges?
Yeah, I'll start with two maybe that are germane to CRISP and our role. I think, there's also larger challenges as you think about just the physical operations of managing a supply chain all the way through from sourcing a good to packing the good to delivering to the stores. I think for CRISP, it really starts with two things. I think data. It's how do I enable the right data to the right individuals with confidence and trust, right? Structured in a way that they want to use it and they can make decisions. I think it's easy to kind of not see the value in that because your teams have been cleaning it and doing all the work in Excel for all the years, right? But as we have to move at a faster pace, if you have to think of scale across 3,000 stores, 1,500 stores, right, you have to be able to leverage that data and you have to be able to trust it. And then I think the second one is through technology, being able to share that data across your organization, right? So that different functions have the same source of truth, right? And so that leadership can start to take decisions, understand the impact of those. And those are still really hefty challenges, right? Is being able to use the data that I have, right? So I'm making these investments in these programs, how am I activating that, and then being able to make cross-functional decisions quickly and with confidence. I think that's really where our sweet spot is and where we focus to help our clients.
Now, how scalable is CRISP's solution for small versus large CPGs? And can you talk about the level of customization that's available to meet different business needs?
Yeah, I love the question, right? Because CPG is an incredibly diverse, and so is retail, incredibly diverse industry, whether you're the challenger brands trying to compete with the big guys on the shelf and get your space and win, or you're the big guys trying to make sure you optimize and continue to grab market share. One of the things that really attracted me to the organization was just that. I think they really the founders took a really platform-based approach. And the benefit of that platform-based approach is the scalability of it, meaning that for a small supplier who just needs to move fast and get the data, and I don't have all the resources, right? The platform enables seamless flow of that data, quick visualizations, and I can take decisions, right? And then I can grow with the program and I can grow with my analytics. Versus the big suppliers, right? They have massive teams, many solutions they can lean on. And that platform approach allows us to move that data very quickly And it allows us to feed it into those different trade promotion planning systems, into their supply chain operational systems. And then it's really pushed us to develop our own analytics and reporting capabilities for their field teams. And so I think the benefit of Crisp is we're really well positioned to both serve small and large, but grow with you as your needs grow, because ultimately our focus is about enabling the data and enabling your people to be successful.
Now, how do you balance the goals of improving efficiency and sustainability in the supply chain? And what role, again, does data play in achieving this balance?
Yeah. I love the sustainability topic. I think obviously core to Chris' mission, but I think sustainability is just a business goal, right? At the end of the day, I want to run a sustainable organization, maximize my resources. So I think it's, the interesting challenge, especially for leaders in CPG, is, you're constantly at this push and pull of how much can I invest and optimize, right? While also just managing against the overall budget, overall goals for the year. I think what I've seen both in my years across working with retailers as well as CPG, I think as long as we orient towards the right business outcomes, right? If you start with what are the objectives, the goals, ultimately that becomes the measure of success. And that's what we hold ourselves accountable to, right? We really focus on making sure that we can demonstrate that ROI for our clients. So as long as you keep that as the North Star, right? The data, the technology, those will be then the decisions and actions I take to drive that outcome. But ultimately, am I making things better? Am I improving what I offer? Am I making more available products for my customers, et cetera?
Now, I noticed that you work with a ton of retailers, and is there a specific, success story of a CPG or retailer that, significantly benefited from Crisp's platform?
Yeah, I think, we kind of got our start. I love the stories. And I don't want to always share brand names just to out of respect to them. But if I think about how Chris got to start really helping some small brands kind of compete at big levels, some of the success we've had with some of those challenger brands, both in leveraging data and showing that advantage, right, to not only grow their business with individual retail partners, but then expand their business to other retailers, grabbing their channel of trade, growing their overall share presence, which ultimately leads to a win for them, and it's a good outcome for Crisp as well, right? We get to grow with them. I think those are some of the ones that we're probably the most proud of, and then as we continue to support our enterprise, continue to build those use cases with the larger CPGs as well.
Now, are there any upcoming features or innovations that Crisp is working on to further enhance the supply chain efficiency and data analytics?
Yes, there's a few things that I think we've got a lot of excitement about. I think one of the biggest ones is, as we've kind of continued to work with more data sets, looking across the omni-channel side of that, I think some things that we're building out on the supply chain side to continue to bring more visibility to the overall supply chain and all the different ways that customers are going to interact with that, and start to enable our customers to really figure out what should my strategy be across the omni-channel and how do I operate as one organization, whether they, again, want to deliver to their house or they want to pick it up at the store, and how do I advise that and give recommendations to my retail partners. So I think continued kind of investment in that space is a big area of importance across the industry.
So there's a saying that AI is only as good as its data. So can you explain this concept and how it applies to supply chain specifically in the food industry?
Yeah, maybe not even just supply chain, but I always like breaking it down to very simple examples. But I think anybody that's tackled a generative AI or legacy AI project quickly realizes that if I don't have my data strategy, my data management well structured, then things are going to get difficult the further I go downstream, right? It's the old cliche saying, garbage in, garbage out. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that's kind of pushing the rise again of just data and all the places that it's going. But example I'll use is if I put you, Sydney, in front of 3 stores in a market, and you watched things move and you watched things sell, you could largely start to make decisions about, should I carry more private brand? What variants should I have? I don't have enough stock of this product. This store maybe has a more digital presence, a lot more pickup. So I need a less variants on the shelf to make it easier for my pickers. Really all we're doing is thinking about that problem at scale, right? But the key is I have to have the data, and it has to be accurate, and it has to be structured in a way that I can take those decisions. Because I can't, I like to think I know what I'm doing, but I can't make that decision across 1,000 stores and 1,500 products. And so AI has huge ramifications and opportunities, right? And analytics to continue to help us make smarter decisions and interpret that. But it has to have good information coming in. And it has to have reliable information that I can take those decisions and know with confidence, right, that I'm doing the right thing.
You sort of touched on this, but how would you counter the argument that AI is nothing but data? And in what ways does AI add value to data analysis in the supply chain management?
Oh yeah, anytime you peel the curtain back and start to dig into AI, it's both a little daunting, but also I think really exciting about what it can do. I mean, the fun thing about AI is it can play across the entire spectrum of the process for supply chain, whether that's in actually cleansing the data and finding patterns and rhythms and making the data stronger itself, which is an ingredient then into the AI, or it's ways to actually source more data further up the supply chain, whether it's all the way from sourcing the goods and understanding that, but all the way down to the models. I mean, I think there was a recent test, I think the article was shared by Databricks, where they just took their model out of the box and with a minor bit of tuning saw significant results in the accuracy forecasting. And I think we're just tipping the iceberg of where some of that will go. But the area that probably gets me the most personally excited is data is only as good as the decisions that it helps you make. And I think connecting the data to decision makers is really an exciting place where AI is going to level that playing field. I don't have to necessarily know all the tools, get in and write SQL code. I can simply interact with the information, use my business knowledge. I think that's where things get really, really exciting for organizations, because there's so much knowledge in our industry and legacy knowledge, and once they can really interact with that, I think the scale of impact of their decisions, will accelerate dramatically. So that's the area I probably get the most excited about it around both supply chain and other areas of the business.
And lastly, what advice would you give to CPG companies looking to leverage data strategies in their supply chains to improve efficiency and profitability?
Yeah, it may sound a little boring, but data strategy, start with your data strategy. And data strategy isn't just, looking at my assets. It's the technology that I want to implement. It's the business outcomes I want to drive. It's data literacy across my organization. Where are we at? What are we ready for, right? How can we take small bets that are tied to our larger initiatives and our larger strategies? So, I wouldn't be afraid to take a step back, right? And then experiment quickly, learn fast. And fail because, again, they have a ton of talent in organizations. And so I think they can make those mistakes, learn from them. But, get back to the basics. Look at your overall data strategy, your overall technology strategy, literacy across your organization. And then where do I want to drive outcomes and use cases, specific to supply chain, and then test and learn, right? Run it out there. The benefit of technology is you can do things quickly and you can learn quickly.
All right. Well, that's all the questions I have. So, Dirk, thank you so much for joining today. This was a really awesome discussion.
I appreciate the time. Thanks for having us on.
Of course. All right. Well, that's the end of this episode of the Xtalks Food Podcast. If you like today's show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Thanks, everyone, and see you next week. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Xtalks Food Industry Podcast. If you enjoyed our discussions today, please share the episode with your friends and colleagues, and be sure to subscribe in order to be notified when a new episode is released. To join in on the discussion, you can find Xtalks on social media, email podcast@xtalks.com, or comment on the articles directly. Links are in the show description. Take a moment to join our community at xtalks.com to get access to everything we have to offer, including webinars, job listings, virtual meetings, articles, and more. The views and opinions expressed in the podcast are those of the speakers sharing them. They should not be taken as professional advice and do not necessarily reflect the policy or position Honeycomb Worldwide. For further information, email us at podcast@xtalks.com. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.